You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Chase Johnson, the founder over at Bloom Creativ. Chase, welcome to the show.
Pat, thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, we're psyched to have you on today. Can you start out giving us an overview? What is Bloom Creativ?
So Bloom Creativ, in short form, is a video production company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we exist to give companies, brands, and foundations a voice. That story stems all the way back from an initial job in trucking where I came across a bunch of truckers without a voice and effectively used the camera to help give them the voice that they never had and help boost retention amongst truck drivers for a company when I was in college. So super excited to be doing that for more brands than just one today. And again, super happy to be on the show, Pat.
Well, cool. And so today, listeners, Chase and his company do video production for a lot of different brands. We found out as we were brainstorming this topic that we've actually collaborated working on the same client over at Cierto. So it was so cool when you've been recommended to come on the show, getting to check out your site and see, oh, there's Cierto. I didn't realize you guys were behind it. Quick sidebar, definitely check out their site. They have some really good videos on there. Today, we're really going to focus the discussion around video production, specifically for products. So whether it's a product that you've had for 2 years, whether it's a brand new product launch. With that, let me play devil's advocate for a second. I'm an e-com founder, let's say. Why should I be investing in video content for my upcoming product launch?
Well, I think when you invest in content, it's always a little scary, right? It's a large upfront investment. But I think there's a few things that stick out to me in the clients that do pay a little bit extra for the video production. First things first, obviously you have a lot higher quality. You are controlling a storyline that you genuinely believe in, and you are also going to have a video and content that's going to have a longer lifespan. If you plan on having that SKU or that product for years to come, you will always have this really high production video to plug and play into ads or reshare or send to maybe a different country that might want to sell your product. Not 100% sure, but there's so much you can do with a video. And like I said, if you're going to have that SKU for a while, it does not hurt to invest a little bit of extra to know you have a quality video.
And so let's say for the listeners that maybe say, hey, really want to create some videos for my products. I'd prefer to take the do-it-yourself approach. I'd love if we could dive a little deeper into how can listeners actually go about creating their own video content in-house. Let me ask you very broadly. Let's say I'm a solo founder. I'm looking to create video for this new product. I have the finalized product in my garage, let's say. What guidance would you offer to me in terms of maybe how I even think about putting together the storyboard? Should I just stand on film and narrate and I as the founder and maybe like the model who's showing off the product? How should I think about that?
Yeah, well, I think it a lot of times comes down to the brand and the client and the product and what they want. But I will say that's oftentimes flushed out in an extensive pre-production phase. So I think a lot of people or a lot of clients that I work with, right, they jump into this video and they're like, we want to get it done in the next month. And I have to kind of hold on, let's pump the brakes. Let's do some discovery and figure out this product or your brand a little bit. Now, we have worked with clients for years and years and years, and some of those timelines do get sped up because products are more or less the same, or their brand images, we're kind of maintaining that same brand image. But that's something really to think about is if you're a founder and you have a product in your garage, let's take the time to really nail down and make sure we're going in the direction you want to go. Because the last thing I want for you would be to spend a bunch of money on something and spit out a product that neither of us are super excited about.
I could definitely relate to the founder trying to jump in and just say, oh, let's just do it all today. Let's just film 5 videos and call it good. Myself and my old business partner made that mistake really early into our company where we decided beginning of the week, we were like, hey, on Friday, we're going to film all these service walkthrough videos. And we showed up that morning at 9 a.m. and both of us realized oh, we don't have a script. I guess we should sit down and write this out for an hour. Needless to say, the video quality did not come out very well. We didn't end up using those videos.
And I've had that where clients are like, well, we really need it by this date. And then we rush it. And then what ends up happening is we end up needing to reshoot this, that, or the other. And they have to come out of pocket for another half day of production or something like that. So yeah, definitely something to think about. And also not knocking the founders, but usually when we get the best results, we're working with some sort of marketing team. So we definitely have made great videos working directly with founders, but whenever there's a marketing team, I feel a lot more confident in the project.
That's fascinating. So along those lines, let's say I'm the solo founder. Maybe there's a couple contractors I work with. Maybe I don't have a specific marketing team that can do the video production. Are there like sources I can go to maybe to find like really good individuals that can actually be almost like the models for my video?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when it comes to model selection, I think that's something that I take a lot of pride in personally. As the production company has grown, I've stepped out of the editing and the filming side of things. But what I really take a lot of pride in is the pre-production side of things. And finding models is key. I think you have to understand who your brand represents. We do a lot of work with a fitness brand, and we have to find extremely strong models to lift some of their heavier products. So that's kind of a challenge. But long story short, every major city effectively has some sort of like model agency or talent agency. And you'll notice a lot of them are listed as models, which are really good for the photo side of things. And then a lot of them are listed as like models/actors. And when you're looking for quality talent, especially for video, the actors are kind of the route we want to go. And actors, kind of a loose term. This doesn't mean they're in Warner Brothers films. This means that they've just have some sort of acting experience, have some sort of confidence in front of a video format, which some just traditional models may not have. But a lot of cities have modeling agencies. In Minneapolis, for instance, we use two. So we have Wayman Agency or Karen Models. Those are two that we go through. And then occasionally, if the budget's a little tight, you can go to old Instagram DMs if you need to find someone. But really that helps dress up a video. And in my opinion, I think quality models can make or break a video.
Interesting. For listeners, let's say based outside of Minneapolis, is it as straightforward as just go to Google and type in like insert city plus model agency? Is there like a specific site you'd recommend that they go to find like model agencies in their area? How do you approach that?
It's interesting. Honestly, there are global model agencies too. I'll never forget, we did this shoot at the Super Bowl and it flew in. It was crazy. There was like 5 models. One was from Chicago, one was from New York, one was from Tampa Bay, Florida, one was from Texas. I remember being like, we have a model from every corner of the earth right now. This is so crazy. So I guess to answer that question though, you could go the national route, or you could probably just search Atlanta Model Agency or New York Model Agency, and you'd probably find someone. Now, I will say that there's a lot of nuances and differences within agencies, at least the ones that I've worked with. Different licensing fees, different levels of talent, different kind of half day and full day kind of like rates and stuff like that. If you are just getting started, or if you are a brand looking to put models in your shoot, definitely take the time to maybe call 1, 2, or 3 and find one that's truly aligned with your brand. The 2 we work with are so good, but I have heard horror stories of people getting less than expected or cut off short, something like that. So,
oh man, that's great context to hear. All right, so let's say we found our model or models, let's say, for our video. How do you think about storyboarding it? What I think of is not to bash car companies so much, but I think of every Super Bowl I've ever watched. I feel like there's always 20 different car commercials, and I never remember any of those car commercials because all they do is just hit me with the features. And then by the end of the Super Bowl, it all just blends together. So maybe a more concise way of putting that is, how can I not make that mistake? How can I make a video that like really pops?
Well, yeah, I love the car example because I think you're onto something, right? Everyone's seen that like Lexus commercial where it's just like sexy and it shows their moonroof opening and like that stuff. And those are what I would consider more like the non-memorable commercials. They're very like feature focused, features that are here today and gone tomorrow. And they're hyper focused on showing like their new tech. And we are guilty of creating videos that are very like feature focused. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the storyboard process of like, oh, it has like this, or you're talking to a marketing company or a marketing personnel that's just like, these are the features. And then you kind of just take those and jam them into a storyboard. But I think what's way more effective, and actually a car company that is doing this really, really well right now is Subaru. I think they always have, but more or less explaining like the feeling that car gives you, right? So some of these Subaru commercials, they'll take you on a whole experience. They'll load up the whole family, the 3 dogs, the tents, all that stuff, and drive out into the woods. And then they'll pull the tent out and tent up and have the dog running around, and then have a fire, and they'll cook a dinner. And that is the feeling that a Subaru driver wants. That's the reason a Subaru driver goes to the dealership and buys a Subaru, right? I guess to answer that question in short form, focus less on the features that your product has and focus more on the feeling that it gives the end consumer.
And I'm 100% in line with you there. I think of the Simon Sinek start with why, of people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Let's say that we have some listeners. Maybe, we have a couple heads of marketing listening in that are saying, yeah, I agree 100% with you, Chase. But the founder of the company is not on board with that. The founder of the company, he or she really wants to sell the features. Is there like an argument that you could give maybe to that CMO to help them to win over the CEO or the founder on the idea of like, hey, let's invest in that feeling as opposed to the features for our video?
Yeah, that's a really hard sell because, and this happens all the time, right? Like the founder has been fine tuning this product for 10 years and it's finally where he wants it. He's so excited. It has all the features. It's so durable. It's always a really tough conversation. But what I say in the simplest terms, because you got to keep it really simple, just bring the viewer from the head to the heart, right? I can sit and look at features all day and I can be up here. Then I'm entering the buying idea. I'm entering the potential purchase up here. I'm wondering, how much is it going to cost? Does it have this feature? Well, I really like this feature, but now it's going to cost this much more. And you're kind of up here and it leads to a lot of indecision versus think of when you're sold through the heart, right? Think of when you go look at a puppy and it's like, you're not going to not leave with the puppy because you're emotionally so attached to it. You're not looking at this dog wondering how much it costs. It's the cutest thing ever. And you just want to take it home with you. So that's the idea. Or the Subaru commercial, right back to that, right? It's like, that's the ideal weekend in my life. And I want a Subaru because I want that weekend in my heart. I want my family there. You're not thinking so much about the features. So yes, I would tell that founder to try to get this video to bring the viewer from the head to the heart.
For a more emotional sale.
The emotional sale is 10 times easier than the analytical sale.
Maybe for listeners that they're taking the do-it-yourself approach and they're saying, hey, I would really like to film this. I'm concerned about maybe the equipment necessary to film. Do these founders, they need to go out and spend $10K on video equipment? Are there good quality elements that they can buy that are still going to deliver without breaking the bank, let's say?
Yeah, well, I would say this. Now, it kind of depends on what you're looking to do. But effectively, cameras and production equipment is that every year it gets so much better. Like today, you can create such an amazing video with a $2,500 camera. And 20 years ago, you would have needed thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear. Now, again, like I said, it kind of depends on what you are looking to do and the scale of things. Now, we've worked with like, if you're like, for instance, a client of ours is like a real estate client, right? And they wanted us to do like talking head videos, right? And I was like, we can do these talking head videos, but also like you could buy these lights and set up this camera and you're going to be able to knock out your talking head videos, no problem. But if you're looking to make like a brand commercial and have a storytelling element and a lot of like those key features that increase the lifespan of your video, I would for sure recommend hiring a production company. They're going to show up with all the gear, the lighting, and probably $20,000 to $100,000 worth of equipment that's going to help bring your vision to life. So it really depends on the scale. That's a really tough answer, honestly. But no, I think that it just really depends on the scale.
No, absolutely. Let's build upon that. Because to your point, if you want the top tier quality, you're going to hire a professional that's going to do it for you. That's always the case. If you're deciding between hiring a professional, you're kind of deciding, hey, do I want to pay with my time or my money? And what quality am I going to be happy with? Within that, let's say for the listeners that are debating whether they should take the DIY route or whether they should hire a production company, are there maybe specific questions that you'd recommend they ask themselves, or specific maybe signs that you see when you talk to a business that indicate, hey, either definitely take the DIY route or definitely hire a video production company that'll lead the efforts and do this all for you?
Yeah. I think there's a few questions, right? I think the first question is kind of like, what are your goals with video, right? Where do you want it to lead you? Second question would be a little bit along the lines of like, what is the ROI, right? So the companies that I oftentimes am like, hey, DIY it all day long, like you just run with this, are the companies that generally aren't going to see like copious amounts of ROI, or they're not going to put a ton of money behind something. So a great example again is like that real estate company that just wants, they have 100 real estate agents and they just want their company to have a little bit more content push, right? But is that content going to transform the brand or give the brand a new image? Probably not. Is it going to sell more houses? Maybe, but it's really hard to tell. I wouldn't recommend a client like that to spend $6,000 a month on video marketing when they could get a camera kit and set it up in a nice conference room for $4,000 and get a lot more mileage out of what they're looking. And you'd be surprised what ends up happening is that real estate company gets all that camera gear and they go on with their talking head videos for a couple months or whatever. And then they're like, we have this great idea of this like huge house tour. We got a $5 million listing. We want to bring this person in. And then they're calling me back anyways, because they're like, we don't have the bandwidth or we can't do that. So it's kind of funny how everything does kind of come back. And I've always prided myself on just being very honest with companies, even if it does affect our bottom line a little bit. I'm not going to sell someone on something that doesn't make sense. So
that totally makes sense. And a lot of what I'm hearing there is it certainly it varies and it depends on a lot of different factors. But almost what I'm partially hearing is, hey, kind of think about it in terms of, is it feasible for you to create something really great that's going to push your brand to the next level? Or is it the type of thing where, hey, if you produce this in-house, you're going to actually detract from your brand? I mean, you brought up the example of Subaru and going camping in the mountains. If I sit there and I try and film a commercial for Subaru with my iPhone sitting in the passenger seat, like, that's going to be terrible. People would watch that and say, Subaru didn't produce this, did they? So granted, maybe not to that same degree, but I think for a lot of listeners, they could probably look at it from the same mindset of like, hey, how much do you value your brand? How much do you value that, like that perception that you're putting out to the world? If it's really important to you, like maybe you look into hiring professionals so that it truly does help to take you to the next level.
yeah, and I think there's countless examples of high quality brands almost like appearing to be at another level based on the quality content they put out. I think Patagonia is the most cliche, but such a great example of like, yes, they make quality garments, but their marketing is like these amazing like films that are just like so beautiful and so tailored to exactly the people that wear their brand. And it deepens those roots and it makes people really reflect on that brand as an upper echelon brand, as a brand that speaks for quality, as a brand that they would pay extra for. So that's a big thing. I think no company that's doing over 50 million a year in sales should not be investing in quality content. No company that I would even say that's doing over 30 million in sales should do any sort of like DIY stuff, because you're at a level where you have a brand image to uphold and enough customers to actually care and make an impact.
Very well said. Let's go to this because I want to ask about a little bit more about like equipment for DIYers, but for cases where you do see brands producing video content in-house, let's actually even say for a larger brand, maybe they have 5-10 full-time marketers, they have a dedicated video production team. What are some of the common mistakes that you'll see those types of brands making when they are pushing out their own videos? Maybe aside from the features element, we won't bash car companies any more than we already did.
What I would say, and what I've seen, is companies develop this whole like in-house team, but not execute much, right? So you have to realize that if you are a company that is going to build out a team of 7 to 10 people on a video marketing front, and you're going to invest in all of this gear and these lights and these recorders and a studio and an editor and all of these things, I've seen it so many times. And a lot of my like freelance friends have like worked for these companies. And what ends up happening is they have all the talent in the world under one roof, but they don't get a lot done. There's not a lot of direction. And I think a lot of founders want this big marketing team, but don't understand that unless they're putting stuff into motion, that a lot of things don't end up happening. I also will say there's still costs associated. Even if you do have a 10-person marketing team, that doesn't mean this stuff is free. You still have to find locations, models, props. Like there's so much that goes into it that a lot of times you'll see like a 10-person marketing team put out 1 commercial and 7 videos a year. And you're like, wow, if they're paying those 10 people, I can't even imagine. They could have saved money by just working with us. So that's what I would recommend. If a company is truly looking to build out an internal team, make sure you have a lot of ideas in the works or a lot of stuff that needs to be created.
Everything you said there really resonates with me. Even if I like switch over to the content marketing side, like the space that our team focuses on, there are a lot of scenarios that we'll talk to brands that have a few like full-time marketers on the team, or they're thinking about hiring marketers. We'll talk through our price points. We'll talk about, hey, here's how much it costs for us to write 1 blog article. And there's oftentimes like a small amount of sticker shock because they'll say like, oh, well, if we hired someone, it would be way more affordable per article for them to write. And I'll kind of have to remind them like, is it feasible for that in-house employee to write that much content in the course of a month? Like I'd argue with all the internal meetings they have, all the other marketing responsibilities, it's not going to be the case. And it's really hard as an in-house employee to be reading or meeting the production quantity that an agency that's doing that stuff every day can really put out. I can definitely relate in that sense. And it makes sense that even with that massive video production team, you might find yourself really struggling to put out like a sufficient amount of content to justify that cost every month.
Yeah. Yeah. And then ultimately I've seen there's a company down the road, doesn't need to be named, but I watched them have all the talent in the world, buy all this gear, and then one day just lay off the whole marketing department. And now they're just stuck with all this gear. So they're like trying to sell some of it or so ultimately looking back, now they're just working with an agency and it's going great. But all that runaround was just really, really crazy.
So I want to ask you a pointed question because when I was checking out your website before this recording, I thought it was so cool what you guys are doing with your space. Can you tell us about the platform that you're using to at least periodically rent out your space to clients that want a better scenery there? Because I think that is such a cool idea that I had never heard it before.
Yeah, this is so funny because I exist in a world where I'm on Peerspace like once a week. We have our studio on Peerspace, but Peerspace, and that's where you're going with this, right, Pat? You're talking Peerspace? Okay,
exactly.
Cool. Yeah, Peerspace is effectively like Airbnb for photo and video shoots. So we have our studio listed on Peerspace. We rent it for $75 an hour, and we've had companies rent it for 4 hours or rent it for 4 or 5 days. So it really depends on what people are looking for, but it's such a great resource. We use it all the time. Even though we have a studio of our own, there's certain situations where we need to rent a studio with faster Wi-Fi or rent a studio with a larger seating area and stuff like that. So if you are a marketer, definitely jump on Peerspace and find what you're looking for. Even if you're a business owner, Peerspace is amazing for a bunch of different things. First and foremost, though, you have this studio shoots, photo and video. They do event spaces too. So some spaces, including ours, are listed as an event space too. So if you were just trying to host a little meetup for your whatever, you could do that. And then they do meeting rooms too. Of course, a lot of companies are working remote nowadays. So their quarterly meetings, it might make sense to jump onto Peerspace and book a nice spot to have everyone come in for a quarterly meeting or something like that. So great little platform and a great way for a production company like us to just make a little bit of side cash off of our studio.
And listeners, we'll add that link to Peerspace in the show notes here as well. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chase. I thought that was so cool when I saw that on your site. Last question I wanted to circle back on, and then I'd love to have you share a couple ways that listeners can get in touch with you. But I wanted to ask you about like video editing. Circling back to the do-it-yourselfers, are there specific like video editing tools or other online software that you'd really recommend they check out if they are deciding to film that content in-house and they're really trying to figure out how to clean up the version 1 of those videos?
Yeah, well, I think editing is changing a lot and it's becoming easier and easier, and in turn making our workflow faster and faster and faster. But I would say that there's a few things. So for like base entry level stuff, I think CapCut is an amazing tool to just cut up clips. They have an amazing subtitle feature that we actually use. Like, we have to pay for CapCut because their subtitle feature is so good. For higher end kind of video and shooting, color grading is a massive thing. Color elicits an emotion in a video, can kind of provide an overall feeling right off the get-go. Like right when you see the first couple shots, you're like, okay, now I get what I'm feeling. DaVinci is the best for color grading. And if you're looking to learn higher level editing, I would say Premiere Pro is like the staple. I say that to learn because if you go on YouTube and search anything Premiere Pro, there's going to be a video on it. There is just such like a cult like following with Adobe. So that is the easiest platform to learn, in my opinion. And then the last thing for the do-it-yourselfers, a lot of people are like, how can I get a lot of content? And I don't necessarily think quantity over quality is the way to go. But if you're looking to get a lot of content out, the fastest and easiest way to do it is to sit down and film a 1-hour podcast like what we're doing right now, Pat. And then you can put it in this online editing software called Opus Clip. And AI will generate and spit you out like 60 clips. 50 of them are going to suck. 10 of them are going to be okay. And maybe 1 or 2 is going to be really, really rock solid. But nonetheless, very simple use of time. We do it for a couple of our clients that we film podcasts for, and they love it. It's a great way to get content in bulk if you don't have a very content heavy business or don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it.
I love that you shared Opus, because I went on a podcast, I think it was last year, and they used Opus to create all these different clips afterwards. To your point, the host who invited me on, I think they sent us, maybe it was 10 clips at the end of the day. So I think they probably did some of the heavy lifting to say, hey, let's cut out a bunch of the bad stuff in here. And the clips they sent were, I mean, they were generally like pretty good. It's especially, I'd assume at least they didn't put too much time into the editing. Yeah, I'll definitely second that. I've loved that. We're using Riverside, which is the podcast recording platform, to record this podcast right here. And we'll, after, as listeners maybe who see this on social media, we'll take all these little clips from all the different stuff we've been talking about today. We'll use those to share them on social. We'll add them to TikTok, all those other platforms. But Chase, to your point, if you can automate some of that to cut down on the time using a tool like Opus, yeah, that's a no-brainer if you're looking to just push out a ton of content very quickly.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, a lot of them are bad, but you have to keep in mind it's AI, so it's self-learning. So it's going to get better and better and better. So I have faith in it long term.
Well, Chase, this has been amazing today. For listeners that either want to get in touch with you or want to learn more about Bloom Creativ, what's the best way to get in touch with you and learn about the brand?
Yeah, so if you're looking to get in touch with me directly, feel free to send me an email, chase@bloomcreativ with no E at the end of creative.com. Our website is a great way to check out our portfolio, bloomcreativ.com with no E at the end of creative. And then if you're looking to just like follow along with the journey, we are very active on Instagram at bloom.creativ, again with no E at the end of creative. And yeah, we love posting updates. We're very heavy on showing like the team and what goes into the projects. A lot of production companies will just post their projects, which is cool, but we believe in showing the people and the process and everything. So definitely have 100% faith in that follow. So follow on with the journey, send me an email, and almost never turn down a meeting. So
once again, listeners, this is Chase Johnson, the founder over at Bloom Creativ. Chase, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.